Ku Klux Klan, also known as the KKK, was originated in Pulaski, Tennessee. The KKK was formed by 6 Confederate veterans on December 24, 1865. The mission of the KKK was to instill fear into blacks and prevent them from voting. Many of the members of the KKK were Confederate soldiers. The Ku Klux Klan weakened the blacks' involvement in politics and weakened their positions in society. The KKK instilled fear into the colored people. The KKK used violence, they lynched people and killed them and tortured them. The Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s had a major influence in politics. Some political leaders were part of the KKK. For example, the state governments of Alabama, Colorado, Georgia, Indiana, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Texas include officials who were Klan members. In 1890, the state of Louisiana had passed the Separate Car Act. The Separate Car Act basically required separate railroad cars for colored people and white people. A group called the Committee of Citizens wanted to repeal the law. Eventually, they persuaded a man by the name of Homer Plessy. Plessy was a mixed man. He was born a free man and was an octoroon. An octoroon is 7 out of 8 European descent and 1 out of 8 African descent. But under the Louisiana law, he was considered black. Plessy bought a first-class ticket at the Press Street Depot and boarded a white-only car of the East Louisiana Railroad in New Orleans. They required Plessy to go to the colored car. Plessy refused and was arrested. In this case, his lawyer argument was that the policy denied his rights under the 13th and 14th Amendments. The counter-argument was that Louisiana had the right to regulate the railroad within the state. Plessy lost the case and was sentenced to pay a $25 fine. The Committee of Citizens took Plessy's case to Supreme Court, hoping that they will win the case. They lost it again. The African Americans wanted equality in rights. Even though they knew the color of their skins would make them look different to other people, they tried to state that they were human and their color of their skin did not define who they were.
Lynching originated around the same time as the Ku Klux Klan was founded in 1865. It was used as a punishment for African Americans for being black. It was also used as a fear tactic to African Americans out of wanting to vote or do anything involving United States politics. Lynching was so common that almost every day a new African American was lynched. Lynching was most common in the southern part of the United States. The sundown towns were a form of segregation in which a town, city, or neighborhood was entirely white and made sure there were no other races in the area. They would lynch any African Americans inside of the area. The Jena 6 was an unfair racial treatment towards 6 African American teenagers who allegedly beat up a white student in Louisiana. The Jim Crow laws were state or local laws that were enforcing segregation in the southern states of the United States. Jim Crow laws came to be because of the Democratic Party compromise in 1877. The reason they made that compromise was because the Democrat Party needed support in the southern states for the presidential election. The compromise was that the federal government would withdraw the troops from the southern states. The withdrawal of troops gave the South the ability to pass the Jim Crow laws. The Jim Crow laws were originated because the South was racist towards colored people and wanted to limit their rights. The whites wanted the colored people to be inferior than them. Jim Crow was a character played by a struggling actor named Thomas Dartmouth Rice. Jim Crow was an exaggerated, stereotypical black character. His Jim Crow song and dance became a success. He performed as Jim Crow all around America and also in London and Dublin. The original law and policies of the Jim Crow laws were to forbid the intermarriage and demanded business owners and institutions to keep blacks and whites separated. The impact the Jim Crow laws had on the blacks was that they had been segregated. The Jim Crow laws had violated most of their rights, their voting rights, First Amendment, and etc. Since the Democratic Party compromised, the federal troops removal gave the South the opportunity to pass the Jim Crow laws.
From the KKK to lynching to the Jim Crow laws, these are some ways to limit the African Americans' freedom. The KKK instilling fear into the African Americans limited their rights.